Merry Christmas, everyone! How's it going? This is Kyle from the TF Review, and welcome to another edition of Deconstructed. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Ressha Sentai Toqger Toqger Brace. This is the changer from Toqger, the Super Sentai series. Now, I said I was going to start moving over, kind of going back and forth from Power Rangers to Super Sentai, maybe throwing a little bit of Kamen Rider. I love henshin devices and morphers, and I love to see how they work. So we're going to do just that with this changer, and if I break it, not to worry, I can buy one for less than $15, because apparently no one cares about these things anyway. Now, the way this changer works is a little bit different from any of the other morphers we've seen so far. It's designed to look like a train station, where you take this train and slide it in. Let's go ahead and hear some of the sounds. You got the lights. You take the train, and then you slide it in, and you pull the lever, and it of course identifies it as the Red Ranger. If you want to, you can push this button. And now you've kind of activated the henshin, or the morph, and then you take this. And now you've morphed into the Red Ranger officially. And that's essentially how it works. It is a little bit different. You have a couple more buttons. You know, it's a very simple mechanism. So I'd probably be showing you the same thing 3 times over if I decided to go ahead and show each button, and that'd just be a big waste of time. So to remove it, there's a little lever right there. Slides it out, close it, bada bang, bada boom, it's done. Very unique mechanism. I think today we're actually going to go ahead, we're going to take apart the Red Ressha first, because I don't think I've taken apart any of the gimmick devices, so it should be fairly simple. I'm assuming there's obviously not going to be any electronics or anything in there, so don't get your hopes up too much. There it is, it's just molded plastic, nothing fancy. So we can go ahead and put all this to the side, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later. Now onto the actual changer itself. Make sure it is off, and we do not want to electrocute ourselves, so we must remove the battery pack. Or the batteries, not a battery pack. And that just comes off. Put that back there. That way. And we just take it, pull the batteries out. And now we can go to town on this thing. First thing is first, remove. And actually this device that moves up is completely removable. This little part right here activates a sound, and that's how it works. And when you actually buy the toy, it actually comes... How many times do I say actually? It comes in 2 pieces. So this right here is what we have left. And for size comparison, this is the American Gosei Morpher. It's roughly the same size, so it's pretty thin. Alright, and we're going to go ahead, we're going to take the rest of the screws out. I believe we're ready to pull this apart, so without further ado, let's see. Alright, there it is. We can flip out the rest of the screws. And we'll notice right off the bat there is a major difference between the American and the Japanese toys, in that the Japanese actually used colored painted screws. So you don't have like this one. So you don't have, you know, just a bunch of big silver screws. And it's even worse on the Legendary Morpher, where it's just screws everywhere. It's nicely done so that you don't notice them hardly at all. Okay, and now we're left with this, and I feel like we can start pulling parts out. Well, it felt like it for a second there. This part definitely we can pull out. This is the mechanism. I'm not sure I want to take this apart any further since it involves springs, and springs suck. Alright, we have taken it completely apart. I'm going to go ahead and organize all the pieces and components, and then we're going to see everything that makes up the ToQChanger. Alright, so here we have the ToQChanger all taken apart, and I do have to say it's definitely a much more complex build than I thought. This isn't everything. There are a bunch of screws off to the side, but I do have them kind of stacked up in piles, so I know which ones are internal screws, which ones are external screws, and whatnot. Since all the screws on this are sized differently, it makes putting it back together kind of a pain in the ass. So we're going to go through all the components. This right here should be easily recognizable. This is where the train slides on, and this is where all the little buttons are pushed on the bottom. We can see it's fairly simple. It's just plastic, as one would expect. This is the battery cover. These are each individual buttons that you push to form the henshin, to switch tracks, or the transfer track button, and the Megazord button. And this is where they all kind of fit into. You do have a bunch of these little translucent pieces of red plastic. This, of course, is for what releases the train and whatnot. And this is, well, I'm just making a mess and mixing everything up, so it'll be fun putting this back together. This right here is, of course, the bottom piece, the main plate, and you just stick it on like that. And I did find it interesting, the guide rails that the bracelet part actually fits on are also completely removable, but it makes sense, since it would be impossible to have it molded on as one piece. But it's not something I'd ever realized until you actually take it apart. Now this right here is the LED lights. Of course, the translucent piece comes right out. The cover for the battery pack. I'll talk about that a little later. The batteries. Don't know what this piece is. And last but not least, the most important piece. This is sort of the barrage, all the electronics, everything soldered together, so I didn't want to take it all apart. It's definitely noticeable that a lot more care goes into these toys than the American ones. Not saying that American ones don't have care, but the color, like parts that are facing up that might be visible, it's colored black. The screws are colored black that are exposed. It's just a lot more care went into it, which is really shows the huge difference between the American and Japanese Bandai branches, I guess you can say. I don't know. And this is divided up of multiple components. Of course, we have the battery pack. I could not remove this piece because the wire slides through the black piece of plastic, and it would just be a pain in the butt. You have the on and off switch. You do have the speaker, which is a high quality speaker. It's so far better than the speakers I've seen in any of the American Changers, which is, again, you know, it's a more expensive toy, at least it was at one point, so that you know, explains it right there. This is where the LED lights are, LED 1, LED 2, and this is the buttons that you push. Little digital buttons, non-mechanical, so you do need to make sure you get these little pad pieces on them. This right here is the main motherboard. There are 5 button switches, one on the bottom, one on the top, and then the 3 right here, which is the reader, which is when the train crosses over, it hits these. So, I kind of like to play around with these when I get them all naked and stuff. That sounded dirty. I think what we're going to do, we're going to put the batteries in, and we're going to turn it on, and we're going to try not to electrocute ourselves. So here's the LED, this is the fun part. and it still works. So we can push some of the buttons. So that does it for that. Now it's the very challenging part, putting it back together, and I feel like this might be one of the hardest ones to put back together for whatever reason. So, cross your fingers. I hope it still works when I'm done. Wish me luck. Alright, so I've done putting it back together, and it was definitely a much more challenging build than I was expecting. There are a lot of springy parts that you don't realize are in there, like the locking mechanism, and there's a little mechanism right there that has a lot of springs, and there's a long spring that runs along the side. There's a lot of springs in this. I just wasn't expecting that. This could be problematic. Alright. I think I fucked this one up too. I'm definitely going to have to go back in there, open it up, and see exactly what I did wrong when it's like 3 a.m. in the morning. And we were able to see exactly how it worked. So far, I am 3 for 5 at this point in terms of putting my toys back together and having them work. But it's definitely fixable. I believe it's the springs that made it a little bit confusing and hard to put back together. But it's got great build quality, obviously Japanese build quality, and it's a wonderful toy. So, with that aside, guys, thank you so much for watching this edition of Deconstructed. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at the TF Review, like me on Facebook, and be sure to follow me on Instagram at the TF Review. It's a new thing I just started. I like it. For fun pictures of nonsense, which I also like. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Have a Merry Christmas. If you don't know this, I'm filming this on Christmas Eve. And I will see you all in the next video.